Holy Happy Hour, Batman. It's Friday, 5 p.m., and that means it's the Holy Happy Hour stream. I'm Ben, that gamer priest, here on Twitch, and happy Pride, folks. It is Pride Month 2021. I'm very excited for this special Pride episode. I'm going to be joined momentarily by a pastor and tabletop roleplay game designer, Ronnie. Very excited for the conversation we're about to have and to introduce them here on the show. It's going to be a really good conversation. I've been waiting for this one for weeks. We didn't have a happy hour last week, so it's been 2 weeks since we've had the show. I'm just psyched to be back. I'm psyched for what we have in store tonight and in the weeks to come. So just a couple of things to go over. I'll do some housekeeping, and then I'll introduce our happy hour cocktail for the week, which is Pride Month themed, and then we'll introduce our guest. So first things first, a little bit of housekeeping. Next week we have what I'm calling a Holy Happy Hour double shot, which is the name I came up with for next week's 2-episode special. I'm trying to find my little note card here with the details on it, and I'm just struggling to find it real quick. But we're excited because next week we have 2 episodes. At 5 p.m. we have 2 very special guests who are going to be coming on to talk about board game design from an academic perspective. They are both academics, and we're going to be talking about keep games and meaning making in tabletop games, which is super excited, and I think it's going to be a really strong and awesome episode. You're not going to want to miss it. And then here it is. So we've got Greg, Loring Albright, and Wes Willison next Friday at 5 p.m. And then we're really excited because we have at 6 p.m. next Friday, June 11th, our rescheduled episode with James D'Amato, host of the One Shot podcast and the Campaign podcast. James is going to be coming on the show to talk about the world of Skyjacks, and he's going to be talking about the influences on the religious world and world building in the campaign world of Skyjacks from the Campaign pod and from Courier's Call. So if you're interested in world building, if you're interested in religion in tabletop role-playing games, if you're interested in learning more about James and the influences over Skyjacks, you're not going to miss that special episode next week at 6 p.m. Friday, June 11th. So that's a double shot next week. We got 2 episodes, one at 5 and one at 6. So very exciting. All right. So what I would like to do is, I keep having this issue where I had this issue last night during No Avatars Allowed, where I keep losing the video for a second. I know how to get it back now, so it was only a split second. I apologize. It's here. So, all right. I want to show you all the recipe card for the drink of the week. I'm not going to take up a ton of time with this. Well, let's go ahead and do that real quick. I created a drink for us this week called the Happy Gamer. The recipe is right there on the screen if you're interested this happy hour in making this Pride Month 2021 special drink. Basically, it's a little complicated. It is a 3-step process of essentially making a third of a drink, a third of a drink, and a third of a drink, because it starts out purple and then goes blue and then goes red, so it's sort of rainbowed and layered in the glass. I tweeted this on my Twitter account, at Benjamin Wallace on Twitter. You can find it there. I will try to remember to tweet it again afterward. And if you want it, you can reach out to me and get it. It's obviously not on the screen long enough to make it right now or anything, but that's our drink special for the week, the Happy Gamer. Someday I'll figure out a way to collect all these cocktails and put them out to you in a better format for you to use and to enjoy at home. So, all right, that's enough. You're on. There we go. See, I was about to say that's enough. Let's get our guest on, and then I accidentally did. So, Ronnie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's an honor to have you. And I'm really excited to have you on for this Pride Month special for the first week of Pride Month.
Thank you.
So for folks who don't know you, why don't we just start out by having you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah. So
a little bit about yourself.
I have been a person of faith my entire life, and pretty much a gamer my whole life too. My parents actually met in a board game store. I kid you not. And so I grew up. Yeah, my mom worked there and my dad was a regular. And so I grew up sitting on my parents' lap watching them play role-playing games. It was really only a matter of time, right?
Wow.
And so when I eventually got old enough, my mother was my first game master. I was raised on very old school games, Original Champions, Harnmaster. If you've played Harnmaster,
I haven't played it, but I know what it is. That's wild.
Yeah, old stuff. And this was the gaming that formed my core, right? This is the stuff I was playing when I was 12, 13 years old. And then I grew up. I went to college to become a pastor at a Christian university. This whole time I had been faithfully going to church. I had been just the absolute picture of a church kid, singing in the choir, leading all of the youth group events, you name it, I was in charge of it. And I eventually studied and graduated summa cum laude with a degree in pastoral ministry, got married, and then with one kid on my hip, by the time I graduated, 2 kids, one on either hip, graduated with a master's degree in pastoral ministry from the same university. I was a senior pastor for 4 years in rural Illinois. And then I was a youth pastor and worship pastor for 2 years in suburban Indiana before the Great Panda Express sent us off back to Chicagoland to pursue new lines of work. So currently I am not assigned, but I still have all of that background and a deep love of theology and of the church. And in the final year that I was in Indiana, I had the incredible privilege to be a judge for the 2019 to 2020 Ennies Awards.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which thrust me into the gaming community in a way that I hadn't been able to be there before. So, I had been online, I had been a part of games before, I had a gaming group, but all of a sudden, it's a different monster when 500 games are sent to your front door.
Yeah. I would imagine it is.
And I joined some online communities that were really incredible, really inspired me. I eventually wrote the solo game that I
was just remembering
created.
that I didn't say that in the introduction, and I meant to, so sorry for that. Yes, the game,
Oh, you're fine.
Like No One Ever Was, a solo RPG that does not reference any intellectual property that you do not have the rights
of any kind. It is fully. It is definitely not about monsters that fit in anyone's pocket of any kind.
Right. How long has your love affair with pocket monsters been going on?
Pokemon is a also lifelong love affair.
That's awesome.
I remember. So it was. I'm a child of the 90s. I'm a millennial. So Pokemon cards were the thing in elementary school, right? Everybody was obsessed with them, and I did not like Pokemon cards. I thought they were silly. I thought that it was overblown. And more specifically, nobody was playing a game with them. And I thought that was dumb because my parents played Magic the Gathering by this point in my life. Okay. So I knew what a trading card game was. Okay. But nobody was interested in actually playing the game that these cards were associated with. They just wanted to trade them. And that didn't make any sense to me. So I remember there was some kind of promotion going on with Lunchables of all things. And they had little Pokemon tiles on the back of Lunchables. And each one had little things about the video game. And this was the first information I ever got that this had been a video game. And my mother helped me to make my own board game with these tiles, and also bought me the video game. And it's been a downhill spiral ever since, both for game design and also for loving Pokemon.
Yeah. Oh man, there is so many. Every time I talk to people on the show, I find 1,000 things avenues I want to go down. Also, I did warn people. I thought about warning people if they hear the chatter of children. I can see the mom look because I make that face all the time on stream and stuff. So I see I see it. But yeah, and for me, it's the dog. Although I'm gonna cross myself. She's over there laying on the couch chilling, which is like a miracle right now. So thank God for that.
Yeah, just one moment.
Yeah. Take your time. That is a regular thing that has to happen on this show. I have a be right back screen in case we have to ever cut away altogether.
There we go.
So, like I was saying, I find whenever I talk to folks, like 1,000 avenues I want to go down. I like. There's a lot of this, the stuff you talked about growing up, like your faith growing up and like religious experience growing up, I can super relate to, but I cannot relate. And I'm so jealous. I mean, I love my parents, but I'm so jealous of growing up with gamer parents. Like the idea of growing up with parents who are playing role-playing games and teaching and running for me. I mean, that's me and my kids now, right? Like I run for that. Do you run for your kids now?
They're still a little on the young side. So my mother refused to run for me until I was 11.
Oh, okay.
Because she knew the threshold. Now, there are more kid-friendly RPGs now than there were when I was
That's
young.
what I was going to say. You could run some No Thank You Evil for them or something.
Yes, and we have done that before.
Cool.
We've done some sessions of No Thank You Evil.
Nice.
They've designed characters in Quest.
Cool.
They've looked at the excellence and a few other things like that. The struggle that we mainly have is that I am ADHD. Yeah. My son is also several different versions of not neurotypical, and my daughter is not. So you've got three different, very, very differently wired brains that all clash when we all have to sit down at a table and focus together. So it doesn't happen often, but when it happens, we have had a good time as long as I contain it to like a 20-30 minute burst. We don't have long gaming sessions. But they really like the idea of it, and they know that it's a thing mom likes to do.
So I will say we have a diversity. We have a neurodivergent sort of household too, with a diversity of that in our household, and that becomes a problem because we have. So during the pandemic, we started playing D&D together early in the pandemic, and I was running for my wife and my middleest child, and we ran a little bit with my oldest when she was here last summer, and I mean, like, okay, I guess I might as well just be blunt about it. Like I'm not ADHD, but running for two people diagnosed ADHD and potentially a third just undiagnosed but also ADHD, it seems to me, means that I have a different way of being at the table than everyone else. And like I'll say that it was like an experience in learning how to be patient in a new way with my wife and kids, and and actually I didn't clear this with her. I think she's probably okay with me sharing it, but honestly my wife discovered she was ADHD in large part from like sitting at the gaming table for a long time, like with different people, and eventually realizing I'm not the same in the way I process and the way I experience this stuff. I should talk to somebody about that, and then getting diagnosed. So really gaming kind of led her to that discovery.
It's amazing the things that you can discover about yourself through gaming. You know, a lot of my queer identity was discovered through gaming at the table.
Please tell us about that.
Well, we've talked a little bit about my parents have been my GMs for a lot of my life. So I vividly remember probably my favorite character that I played as a youth was a magic user by the name of Minori. Okay. And Minori was a water mage. Now it's great. In Harnmaster, if you don't know, you randomly generate both physical and psychological things that can happen to your character.
Okay.
Nowadays, I would look back on that and some of it would skew very, very ableist. But some of it was really interesting, right? And some of it made for some really cool things that changed the way you played your character. So I had a character who was perfectly statted to do water magic, right? Water and ice and darkness, essentially. But she had an innate fear of drowning. And so that was very cool to me because, she sought to control the thing that frightened her. But so this was a game that my father ran. And many times in my youth, I can remember games that my father ran where he attempted to place into the game a love interest for me. Okay. Can I say...
Wait, how old were you for this?
I was 17.
Okay, 17. Okay.
Can I say, don't.
Okay.
Don't do this.
So what you're saying is, as a dad,
as a parent
who wants to continue to run roleplay games for his kids into the future, don't. Okay.
Don't do that. Okay. If you do this, make sure you've talked to your child about what they want and expect.
But see, isn't that a good rule of thumb no matter who you're running for?
Well, yes. Yeah. And again, we've learned a lot about consent. Yeah. That we were not engaging with consent in that way when we were at my father's table. But I remember that he tried very hard to place characters in the game to woo the fair lady Minori.
Interesting.
These things went poorly. They went very, very badly because, my father attempted to romance my character in a very stereotypical, this is how young girls should want to be treated by a manly man sort of way, a very heteronormative way. Yeah. And so this brave knight would brandish his sword and be like, stand back. It is I who is here to save you. I'm a ridiculously powerful wizard.
Yeah, right.
Who can also wield a sword. So we were going hunting. We were in a jungle, I recall. And there were these wildcat-like giant tiger creatures that were attacking us. And this guy keeps getting in my way, trying to protect me. And I remember that I killed 3 of these things in a row, one-shot them. Just the dice tell the story, absolutely destroyed 3 of these things in a row with ice spells directly in front of this man. Completely emasculated him. And he fully gave up on trying to impress me because every time he tried to swing a sword at one of these things, I'd kill the thing. And now my father had also introduced a group of characters who were they were a cognate of a D&D group he had liked when he was younger.
Of course.
So they were old characters he remembered and enjoyed.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And so, of course, these were much better developed characters, right? They were more interesting. They had more personality, and they behaved as fully realized beings rather than as character tropes. So I was interested in them. I liked them as friends in the game. And there was a halfling specifically in the party who I would talk to a lot at the campfire, and my character grew to really enjoy. And so I approached my dad after a session, I remember once, and said, I think Minori would like to have a relationship with this halfling. And now keep in mind, this is years before I will know any of the vocabulary for any kind of queerness.
Yeah.
And my dad goes, well, she can't.
Oh.
And I said, why? And he said, well, she's human. And I said, so? And he said, well, honey, halflings and humans can't have children together. And I was like, so what? She doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
She just likes this guy because he's nice and a good cook.
Yeah.
And so years later,
That's fascinating.
when I came out as asexual,
Mm-hmm.
And I was unpacking all of these feelings, I remembered Minori, and I went, oh, those feelings have always been there. They've always resonated very deeply with me. Minori was a character that I poured a lot of myself into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Minori was a character who had a very interesting relationship with sex and sexuality because she had been raised in the temple of a pleasure goddess. She had been raised essentially by temple prostitutes.
Okay.
And so she did not have necessarily an aversion to that sort of thing. She was very comfortable with it. It just wasn't of interest to her. And I remember being very specific about that division. And, you know, I look at that now and I reach back into the past and cup little Ronnie's face and go, that's asexuality, honey. Right. You just described being an asexual. But I didn't know. I had no idea. Yeah. I didn't have those people in my life to support me and explain that to me.
Yeah.
And now the queer community that I have and began gaming in gave me those spaces to make those characters and to try those things and to realize some things about myself unintentionally through the pretend I was playing.
That's exactly.
And isn't that the best part about play?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. I was going to say, like, is there, you know, what's it like? Is it does role playing give you the chance to like embody these different experiences and help you explore those spaces? Which you already kind of answered.
I don't think it has to.
Yeah.
Right? Like sometimes playing a character is just playing a character, right?
Absolutely.
My father plays all kinds of female characters. I don't think my father has ever in his life wanted to be a woman.
Yeah.
He just sometimes wants to play a female character, and that's fine. But I think for many people, playing in that space gives them a chance to explore spaces that the world doesn't give them a safe place to explore, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you explore those places and you go, you know what, that's not for me.
Right.
And that's another reason why it's safe, right? Because it's play. And you put it back in its box and it was fun and you're done with it now. But other times you explore those places and you go, oh, no, that's a part of me that I didn't know about. And then you can start thinking about it more and more and embodying it more in your real life too. And it can still be part of your play, but it can also be a part of who you are. And so play has been very useful to me in that way, and helpful to me in that way. So also quarantine has been very useful to me in that way and helpful to me in that way.
How so?
So I came out as specifically demisexual in the asexual spectrum about 5 or 6 years ago. I don't remember specifically, but while I was still actively in ministry, because I was involved in some communities that again gave me those words, that vocabulary to articulate the things that I'd been feeling for many years. But quarantine, being finally sort of separated from the day-to-day grind of everyday ministry life, which, as you know, consumes about 80% of your brain space at any given time. And just being forced to sit indoors with my family and my thoughts. Made me think a lot. And since pretty much the only form of entertainment I had was to play games on Zoom with my queer friends, I did a lot of play. And so over the past year, I've spent a lot of time analyzing myself and my gender identity and my sexuality, and I've come out as biromantic and gender fluid and polyamorous as well. And those things are still very much wrapped up in my ace identity. I didn't become less ace. But that has really been exciting for me. It's led to a better and healthier me. It's led to some fun writing projects. I actually published a small collection of poetry recently called Quarantine Made Me Gay. And just about how that felt over the year and thinking and feeling and those things. And it's made for a lot of really fun role-playing games.
Well, yeah, I bet. I mean, it just strikes me as, wow. I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot, like, in the sense that the last year has been very intense and a lot for everybody, I think. Everyone I talk to anyway. It's been like, you know, just a lot in general, a lot of new experiences, a lot of relating to the world in a new way. It's been, for some people, a real struggle of mental health and other things. But to like add on to like your pandemic experience, like also like that kind of self-exploration and also coming out to different people, it just seems like adding on a lot of layers. It sounds intense. You know, has it been as intense as it sounds?
Yeah, it sure has. So I am incredibly fortunate in that I have, like I said, a wonderful community. So I have a group of incredible queer gaming friends who have been really my rock through all of quarantine. When we had to move in the June of 2020, these were the people who drove across state lines to haul our stuff into a new home. These were the people who sat with me on Zoom and let me cry when we found out that my husband had been laid off. These are the people that have lived through this hell year with me. And so we've all learned things and grown together, but I also have an incredible husband who has watched all of this and watched me grow and learn and change, and has not understood but has let me change anyway. And that's really incredible. So each time I have come to him and been like, hey, so fun story.
Yeah.
He has sat down and usually I sort of give him the Cliff's Notes bulletin, as you will. And then we wait like a week and a half so that he can buffer.
For like processing time. Okay.
Yes. And my husband, bless his soul, is the most cishet white man to ever walk the planet. But doggone it, he really, really, really wants to understand and help and be an ally. So he buffers for about a week and a half, and then we talk. And he asks the questions that he has, and I answer them as well as I can. And then he hugs me and he says, I promise to love you no matter what, and you're still the same person, and I still love you. This doesn't change just because you figured out new words to describe who you are.
Do you have I'm just curious, do you have like a theological lens for that? I'm just, when you said that, it just struck me as like the way Christians specifically talk about marriage. And I'm just wondering if there's a theological grounding you think in that relationship of support.
So it's interesting, right? Because the way marriage is framed theologically is so different than what it's actually supposed to be. The way we talk about marriage in predominantly in evangelical circles, we put it on this pedestal. Heterosexual marriage specifically, marriage between one man and one woman, that this is not only the only correct way to do marriage, but it is also this absolute paradigm.
Yeah.
That perfectly encapsulates love and union and everything. And that's simply wildly blowing out of proportion a few analogies from Paul.
Yeah.
And instead of taking a pretty basic social reality that he was using as a metaphor, and understanding it for what it is.
Amen.
So the way I understand my marriage theologically, the way I understand marriage theologically, of any kind, is in the Ephesians household codes, it says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. And then it goes on to say, wives, submit to your husbands, husbands, love your wives. But that's all part of the same sentence. And I won't bore the readers who don't have a Greek Bible and don't care to have a Greek Bible. But it's the only time it says submit is at the beginning when it's talking about everybody. And thanks, bud. And so the way I see my marriage is my love for the person that I promised myself to is such that I am to serve him, not because he's better than me, not because he's in charge of me, but because I love him. And because I choose that, but also he's chosen that for me as well.
Right.
And any other partnerships I may or may not have for the rest of my life will be the same thing.
Right.
It's servant love. It's the servant love that Jesus taught.
Right.
And the way he reacts to me as I explore my sexuality and identity is a servant love.
Yeah.
He understands that I am not I'm not looking to abandon him. I'm not looking to hurt him. I'm looking to understand better who I have been created to be, and thus how to be a better spouse to him, parent to our children, etc., by being more fully myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe even seeing the reflection of God's presence in you in a more full way as you're living into who you are, which is one of the things I think about. And I think one of the things that's like what you said is often so lost when we in the discourse about marriage, in the discourse about like even in like when there's like a cultural sort of awareness out there, even in secular culture and in like non-religious culture of like, well, what do Christians think about marriage, and like what do conservative evangelicals think about marriage? In the discourse about like submissiveness or servanthood or whatever, what I think is like lost by everybody, well, not everybody, but most people, is like the fact that the idea of love in Christianity is, like you said, is servant love. I mean, it's like the idea at the heart of Christianity, right, is like serving and loving and loving service. Like, you know, I mean, I just think of John's farewell discourse and Jesus, his last commandment to his disciples to love each other as he has loved them. And like, and this is what happens when I think we read like 1 Corinthians 13 at weddings and we like divorce it from its like actual theology and we just make it about like marital love and not like, you know, like what it is, what Paul's talking about, which is not that. It's agape. It's the love basically that the followers of Jesus experience in their teacher Jesus, and then we're sent out to show the world. And so, yeah, I mean, I think like we lose that. And so when everyone loses it, it cheapens the marriage, the concept of marriage. It cheapens love in general. It cheapens like the gospel, I think, when we lose that.
Absolutely. I think love as I have a love-hate relationship with the idea of the multiple words of love in Greek.
Okay.
Because you're right? Like it is this servant love. And there are different understandings of love in Greek and different words for love in Greek. Also, I think that unfortunately we have made so much of that distinction in Christian culture, right?
Sure.
So that when you then get to, for example, the LGBTQ community, we go, oh, well, that's not real love.
I see.
That's not agape. That's not the kind of love Jesus has.
I see. I hadn't even thought about, I've never really thought about that. The idea that you can just sort of assign certain kinds of love or sexuality to like, say like, oh, that's because they're lost in eros or something. And
that's the bad kind. That's just the sex love.
Right.
That's not the real love. And
I'm sorry. It's not funny.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, I don't want to cheapen love, right? I want to understand love as this thing that involves sacrifice. It involves servanthood. It involves healthy boundaries. Obviously, when I'm saying sacrificial and servanthood love, I'm not saying give until you burn yourself to a crisp, because I know that's something that gets read into it, unfortunately, by people who have dealt with toxicity. But I also want it to be recognized as having many layers and forms, right? Because when Jesus talks to his disciples, he also calls them friends. When Jesus talks to his disciples, he also calls them his brothers.
Right.
And so I it's so important to me that as a queer person and a person of faith, that when I talk about love, when I talk about love in the context of my husband, when I talk about love in the context of my friends and family, when I talk about love in the context of my Savior, that we understand it as full and rich and beautiful as it deserves to be.
Yeah.
Something that takes work and vulnerability and suffering, but also is beautiful and intimate and tactile and sometimes romantic, and in some cases sexual. Fewer cases for me, because I'm ace as crap, but for other people, more than that.
Right. Wow. So, I was about to ask you a question, but actually I don't know your level of, well, I guess I'll just ask this. How far have you been able to, or have you chosen to come out at all to your family? I was just thinking about your first experience with your dad, and I don't know if you ever had a chance to resolve that, or maybe it's something you'll never resolve, or it's in your future.
So some of my family knows, not all of my family. And, so I won't go into the particulars of that, but some of my family is aware and some of them are not. And that's hard.
Yeah.
But you know, it's one of those things where people are going to want to think and learn the things that they want to think and learn. And we deal with this in church, right? You can only teach as much as people are willing to learn.
Yeah. So, oh man, where even to go? It's interesting because I'm kind of like noticing this parallel. Like it's a weird one. So it's a weird one. So bear with me. I don't know. Between there is a stigma is maybe the right word, but there has been in the past this idea of like, geek stuff, especially role-playing games, especially like Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, that's not compatible with being a Christian. And then and then the parallel I'm noticing is like being queer, being LGBTQ, whatever, is not, is not compatible with being a Christian. It's just interesting to me. I'm noticing that parallel.
Oh, my mother was kicked out of teaching Sunday school when I was in 5th grade because the pastor found out that she was playing role-playing games.
I was going to ask you if any of that was in the history for your parents as like people of faith. I don't even know
yes, very much so, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, we talked. So I had Derek White on. Sorry, my dog is suddenly deciding this is the moment to. Hey.
Of course, it's no problem. I'm sure you've heard the shouting going on in the background.
No, it can't be as loud as her deep bark. That's for the first time on the stream. Our streamers are hearing, our watchers are hearing my dog Margaret, who's named after Saint Margaret, who's has a pretty loud bark. Hey, please knock it off. No one's home besides me to distract her. But yeah, we had Derek White on the show 2-3 weeks ago, and he talked about like satanic panic and deciding like being told basically that it's not compatible to being a Christian and being a D&D player in like the 80s. And so your family experienced that firsthand because you said you grew up in the church, so involved, and I was wondering about that.
So my mother used to run the Sunday school for a group of 4th and 5th grade boys. Now, if you've spent any time around 4th or 5th grade boys, you know that if you're going to do things like convince them to memorize verses, you need incentives. So again, it was the 90s. I cannot stress this enough. And so my mom used Pogs. Because those were it then.
Hey.
And she had some that had like Bible verses on them, just like, or like crosses or whatever on them. But she also just got pogs because they were pogs and they were cool and kids liked them. And she would give them out as rewards for like memorizing the Bible verses. And this eventually made its way to the pastor, and the pastor got angry and invited my mother into the office for a meeting, which, you know.
Because of the pogs.
Because of the pogs.
Okay. All right.
And started showing her. He's like, I'm just really worried about what's on some of these. And he shows her one has a unicorn on it. Says, you see this?
You gotta be kidding me.
This is a druidic symbol. This is an altar to Satan, and Satan has a right to be where his altars are. You see this? This is a tree, and this tree is a druidic symbol, and it's an altar to Satan, and Satan has a right to be where his altars are. And my mom's sitting there like, who made trees?
And mind-boggling to me.
And he eventually got to, if you're not careful, people are going to think you're one of these people who plays Dungeons and Dragons. And
man.
I do.
Yeah.
And
like, actually, you've diagnosed the situation 100%. Like, that is, like, you nailed it. You got there. It took you some time, but you got there.
And she was forcibly removed from teaching children for years.
That's so sad.
And eventually that minister was removed, or he did leave that church. And then when the new minister arrived, there was a sermon, and it was a basic like be saved and sanctified type sermon. And the way my mother tells the story, she just sort of felt God tugging at her like, hey, go pray. And she was like, all right, God. Because my mother's always been very close with Jesus. This whole time, as things were going very badly for her, she spent hours and hours praying, begging God, like, again, with those parallels, begging God, Lord, if this is something you don't want for me, please take it away. And never did. And so she went down to the altar. And this poor brand new pastor who did not know my mother assumes this must be a woman who needs to be saved for the first time. So he comes down, he's like, so how can I pray for you today? And she goes, I don't know. She was like, I know I'm saved. I know Jesus. I love Jesus, but he told me to come up here. So I'm waiting. And this absolutely flustered man goes, well, we'll just pray that the Lord meets the need of your heart today. And at the end of the service, the man in charge of Sunday school classes for the church walked up to my mom sobbing. And he said, I was sitting in the pew and I was crying and I was going, Lord, we really need people to teach the teenagers, and we don't have anybody. Nobody will say yes. And I looked up and you were walking to the altar, and wow. I felt the Lord nudging me and said, there's Rhonda. There she is.
Wow.
And that was the day that she got to start teaching teenagers again. And now she runs a church youth group D&D game.
That's amazing. It's sad to me in so many ways. I mean, like, it's like it's just so heartbreaking, because like when I think of how awesome D&D is for kids and for youth and for like, for the context of like youth group, or for the context of like, Christianity in general, like just like how I mean, I have pastor friends. I don't know if you do, who like run church D&D games, and I mean, my church has my church has. I say I have pastor friends, but my it's so funny that I said that, because my church does have like an RPG group. Yeah, I forget sometimes because we've been in a pandemic for a year and it's been online. But like we'll meet tomorrow night in person for the first time since the pandemic ended, with a Vaxxed only version, and then we'll continue to do online. But yeah, so anyway. Yeah, it's so tragic, right? To think ever for a second that like that's not just the coolest thing to do in a church context, because it really is, and many other geeky hobbies.
And again, it's one of those things where, and perhaps that's something that helped me lean into my queer identity, right? Because I spent so long going, why would God hate my mom for this hobby she enjoys?
Yeah.
She's an incredible leader in the church. She loves Jesus. I've seen her life.
Yeah.
But what would be the part of that God wouldn't like? And then the barrier to me understanding that about the LGBTQ community was simply that I was an isolated person who had never had the chance to encounter the LGBTQ community. And so as soon as I was broken out of my tiny little bubble and found out that, oh, the LGBTQ community is also humans who are wonderful humans who can love Jesus, well, why wouldn't God love them too? Where's that? And then learning, of course, exegesis, and learning how to study scripture myself, and learning the core principles of theology myself, and being able to break that down, and then being able to eventually break those things down in myself once I had broken those things down outside of myself. Really, I do see a lot of those parallels, and just recognizing different places where God has always been active on the fringes of society. And unfortunately, the vast majority of religion has always been like, no, he hasn't.
Right.
And that's the true sad thing.
Well, I was going to ask you if any of this has ever caused you to question your own faith. Did you ever have any moments where, it pushed you as to have any doubt or?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I am a rules follower by wiring.
Yeah.
Anxious to a fault.
Yeah.
Perfectionist to a fault.
Stop saying so many things that describe me. No, I'm just kidding. It just it's close.
I was the kid who, when I was little, would pray like, and if I did anything that I forgot about that was bad, please forgive me of that too.
I was that kid. I was so much that kid. Oh my God. I still am that kid. But anyway.
But, and so when, as a young adult, I began to critically examine my own beliefs for really the first time I stopped just absorbing the ideologies that had been pumped into me since childhood and really started going, but what if? I felt crazy, right? Because I had been used to gaslighting myself for so long. Oh. And I spent many years wondering if this was okay or if I just didn't love Jesus enough. And I still sometimes have those moments, right, where I get scared. What if I wake up one day and find out that I'm just 100 miles down the road in the wrong direction? But I cling to the by their fruit you will know them. One of the most conservative people I know in college, when the idea of LGBTQ persons was brought up to him, and this is this is hilarious to me because he would probably be very disappointed in me if he knew me now and knew who I am and the positions I hold today. But I vividly remember him saying in a classroom, the thing about the LGBTQ community is we cannot act with hate. We have to outlove them. He said these words in a classroom of people who were learning the position of their denomination that orientation isn't wrong, but action is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I lived in that denomination for years.
Yeah.
And I watched it.
Yeah.
And you know what we weren't doing? Outloving anybody.
Right. Mm.
And so what I would tell him now, if I saw him today, is I took what you said seriously. You said we have to outlove them, and you were right, and we don't. And the people who are doing the love of Jesus Christ right are the people who are accepting these people with open arms and loving them as Jesus loves them. And you're not doing that.
Wow. I feel like that has to be the note that we go out on. That was amazing. Ronnie, thank you for coming on the show and being so brutally vulnerable and open and honest with us and about your life and who you are and your faith and all of this. I'm deeply grateful for you making the time and joining me for this episode and for being my guest in this first Friday of Pride Month.
Thank you.
Very thankful for it. And so I'm going to ask Ronnie to hang around. There we go. We got another thanks there from Mosberg in the chat. I'm going to ask Ronnie to stick around in my digital green room, which is what I decided to call it right this moment. And then I just got real quick housekeeping that I'm going to do. So again, Ronnie, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
And so just a quick housekeeping notes for all you watching. Please don't forget to hit follow there on the bottom. I am very close to 50 followers, which I was hoping to meet by 5 p.m. today. Didn't get it yet. Going to get it by next week. I'm going to get it by next week. It's a goal. I'm going to do it. And I'm very excited about next week's shows, and I really want to go into them with affiliate status next Friday. So if you can help me with that by hitting follow or letting anyone else out there know about my stream here at That Gamer Priest so that they can follow too, I'd really appreciate it. One more time, I'll just throw that recipe card up on the screen while I'm talking because I can. You can see our drink there. If you missed the beginning of the show, I've got a couple of things in there. Something I didn't get to announce yet, but I wanted to. I'm very excited about a Kickstarter going on right now. And believe it or not, it is not a TTRPG Kickstarter. It is a Kickstarter for a vinyl record, but it's extremely close to my heart. This is from my good friend who does the music you've always heard on my streams, but tonight the music is a little bit different. It's my good friend, Dr. Octorok. He's an artist. He's a musician. Probably the most talented person I know. No exaggeration. He is doing a vinyl tribute to my favorite band of all time, the Flaming Lips, of my favorite album of all time, The Soft Bulletin. And he's doing, it's called Soft Bits In. It's on Kickstarter now. It's an 8-bit tribute to the Flaming Lips. You're going to hear the 8-bit version of Waiting for Superman in just a minute when I go to the Thanks for Watching screen. At the beginning of the show, you heard the 8-bit version of Race for the Prize. You'll be able to hear the whole album if you back it on Kickstarter, but even better than that, you're going to be able to get a beautiful vinyl edition of it. And I've supported Dr. Octorok's Kickstarters for vinyls before. He did Neutral Milk Hotels in the Airplane Over the Sea a couple of years ago. And so I really hope you'll consider taking a look at that Kickstarter. The information will be on the screen in a minute, assuming I remember to put it there I actually might not have remembered to put it on the thanks for watching screen, but it was at the waiting for screen. If you just search for Soft Bits In or Dr. Octorok on Kickstarter, you will find it that way. It's got about 12 days and less than $1,000 left to succeed. It originally launched last year at the beginning of the pandemic, but because of the pandemic, he had to pull it down. I could try to drop a link in the chat. I'll drop a link in the chat in just a moment when I go to the when I have the ability to do so, and we go to the thanks for watching screen, and you're listening to the great song. Stick around to listen to it, and I'll drop a link in the chat. So that's the other thing I wanted to announce. And don't forget, next week we've got a double shot of Holy Happy Hour, 2 episodes. Really excited with James D'Amato joining me at 6 p.m. You're definitely not going to want to miss it. It's not at our regular time, but it's 6 p.m. James D'Amato is going to be here. I'm very excited and grateful for that, and I really hope that you'll be here with me as well. So thanks for joining this great episode today and for being with me as always. I appreciate you watching and supporting the show, and we will see you here very, very soon.